72 hours in absolute darkness, 50 meters underground, no water, air running out. Tom Richardson was losing his life. And then his hands touched something impossible in the darkness. When the rescue team finally reached him, what they saw defied everything. A miracle of the Virgin Mary that no one can explain. But before we continue, leave a comment saying where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I'd love to see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary are reaching. Tom Richardson was 38 years old and had been working in a mine in Denver for 15 years, divorced for 3. He woke up early, worked all day underground, and came home too tired to do anything besides eat dinner and sleep. Do you know people like that, who just exist? No big plans, no big dreams, just passing the days. Tom had been living like that since the divorce. On the previous Friday, he was having dinner when the phone rang. Instant noodles, alone in the kitchen, thinking about nothing in particular. "Hi, Daddy." Maya's voice always made something strange happen inside his chest. 9 years old, brown hair, eyes just like his. The only good thing left from the marriage. "Hey, Princess, everything okay? Are you coming to pick me up on Sunday? I always will. There's a new park with giant swings. Can you take me?" Tom smiled for the first time that week. "Of course, 9 o'clock. I love you, Daddy." "I love you too." Tom finished the noodles, already cold, and pulled out the photo he always carried in his pocket. Maya on her birthday, laughing with chocolate cake all over her face. Crumpled photo, worn edges. He put it back. He had no idea that in 4 days he would be 50 meters underground, in the dark, holding that photo and thinking he would never see his daughter again. Tuesday started like any other. Tom went down with the team at 6:30 in the morning. Jake was telling some joke about his dog. Marcus was laughing loudly, that kind of laugh that echoes in a closed tunnel. Robert, the 22-year-old rookie, still thought all of it was kind of exciting. Tom just listened. He wasn't much of a talker. They were going to reinforce beams in an old section of the mine. Routine, the kind of thing Tom had done hundreds of times. The descent was normal. Jake still telling the dog story. Marcus laughing, the sound of boots hitting rock. 11:23 in the morning. You know when you feel something? You can't explain what, but something in your body says something is wrong. Tom stopped walking. The team kept going ahead. "Guys," Tom began, and the world exploded. The sound was impossible to describe, as if the entire universe were shattering at the same time. Rock cracking, a burst of dust, screams coming from every direction. Tom felt something hit the side of his head, a sharp pain that made everything go white for a second. Then, nothing, just darkness. When Tom woke up, he had no idea how much time had passed. It could have been a minute, it could have been an hour. Time had stopped existing. He was lying on his side. Something very heavy was pressing on his left leg. He tried to move, pain exploding through the entire leg, but he managed to pull it free. He began feeling around in the dark, a rock wall. He crawled to the other side. Another wall. He turned, another one. He managed to get on his knees, tried to stand but hit his head on the ceiling, way too low. He stayed on his knees, hands running along the rough walls, searching for an opening, an exit, anything. He found only rock, rock on every side. "Jake!" His voice came out hoarse, desperate. It echoed in the tiny space. "Someone!" Nothing, only the sound of his own breathing coming back to him. He tried the helmet flashlight, pressed the button, pressed again. Nothing. Broken. Tom leaned against the wall, breathing too fast, heart pounding in his ears. "Okay, calm down, breathe." He spoke out loud, just to hear some sound other than the silence. "They know where we were. They're going to come. I just need to wait." He grabbed the water bottle he always carried on his belt. The plastic was completely crushed, empty. And that was when he truly understood the situation he was in. Have you ever been in complete darkness? I'm not talking about a dark bedroom at night. I'm talking about darkness, where not a single molecule of light exists, where you put your hand in front of your face and see absolutely nothing. Tom was in that darkness. He began to understand the space by feeling it, a tiny pocket. Maybe 2 meters on one side, 1.5 meters on the other, rock walls on every side. A ceiling he could touch just by raising his arm, completely sealed off from the rest of the mine, from the rest of the world. He tried to move the stones blocking what he assumed was the exit. He pushed with his shoulder until his muscles burned, pulled with his hands until his nails broke, kicked until his toes throbbed even inside the boots. Nothing moved, not even a centimeter. Tons and tons of rock between him and any possibility of getting out. He screamed again. "Someone! I'm here! Can anyone hear me?" He screamed until his throat hurt, until he was hoarse, until he realized he was wasting precious air and energy he would need to survive. He stopped, sat with his back against the cold wall. He pulled the photo from his pocket. He couldn't see it, but he knew every detail by heart. Maya smiling. "They're going to come, Maya," he whispered in the darkness. "Daddy just needs to hold on a little longer." He put the photo away carefully, closed his eyes, not that it made any difference in the absolute darkness, and waited. Tom had completely lost track of time. No watch, no light. Everything had turned into one continuous blur. It could have been a day. It could have been 2. His body was shutting down in a way that made it impossible to know. The thirst had started slowly. First, just discomfort. Mouth getting dry, tongue sticking to the roof of his mouth. But now it had turned into something else. A constant pain that pulsed with every beat of his heart. Tom thought about water and couldn't stop. Cold tap water. A glass filled with ice. Even the warm, chlorine-tasting water from the mine felt like paradise now. "Stop thinking about it," he said out loud. "It doesn't help." But it was impossible not to think about it. How long can a man survive without water? 3 days. 4, if he's very lucky. He took the picture out again. "We're going to that park on Sunday, Princess," I promised. Daddy always keeps his promises. He put the picture away and tried not to think about how much time had passed, how much time he might still have. It was when his body truly started shutting down that the real panic arrived. Tom was lying down because he no longer had the strength to sit, his head spinning, his thoughts growing confused, disconnected, drifting without direction. And suddenly he understood with brutal and terrifying clarity that he probably wasn't going to make it. The math was simple. He was going to die in that hole, and Maya would grow up without a father. "No, no, no," he repeated, as if the words could change reality. "It can't end like this." But it could, and it probably would. He took the picture out, pressed it against his chest. "I'm sorry, Princess. I'm sorry. I swear I tried, I swear." And for the first time in years since his mother had passed away, Tom tried to pray, "Our Father who art in heaven." He stopped. He didn't remember the rest. 20 years without going to church, without praying, too busy with work, marriage, and life. He had forgotten. "I don't remember how to do this," he admitted to the emptiness, to the darkness, to whoever might be listening. "Please, Maya needs me. She's only 9. I know I stopped believing, I know, but she's not to blame for that." It wasn't a beautiful prayer with the right words and proper structure. It was just pure desperation. Tom cried. The first time he had cried since the divorce, sobs, tears running down his dust-covered face. He cried until he had no tears left, until his body stopped trembling. And then, completely exhausted, he fell asleep, or passed out. At that point, the difference no longer mattered. Something woke Tom up. It wasn't a noise. It was the physical sensation of drowning despite being on dry land. He tried to breathe. Almost nothing. Tried again. The air he managed to pull in was not enough. Panic came before any rational thought. His body already knew what his mind was still processing. The oxygen was running out. Tom had seen this happen once. 5 years earlier, a co-worker trapped in a collapsed section. When the rescue team finally reached him, he was already gone. He fell onto his back. His vision began to blur. His head grew light, distant, like sinking into deep water. And that was when he felt it. A smell. Impossible, but unmistakable. Roses. Tom went completely still except for his heart, which was still beating out of control. The scent grew stronger, fresh like a spring garden, delicate but so real it felt like he could almost touch it. Roses in a mine, 50 meters underground, surrounded by rock and dust. "No," Tom whispered into the emptiness. "This isn't happening. I'm hallucinating." But the smell kept growing, filling the tiny space, impossible to ignore or explain. The perfume of fresh roses so strong that for a moment he forgot he could barely breathe. Tom sat up despite the dizziness, despite everything, his heart racing. Where was it coming from? From everywhere at once. He started feeling around, hands on the rough stone wall, running along the corners, searching without even knowing for what exactly. And then his fingers touched something that wasn't rock. It was thin and had knots, beads, a cord, wedged between two large stones. Tom grabbed it and pulled gently. It didn't move. He pulled harder. Something came loose with a soft sound of shifting rocks. A rosary. And at its end, attached to the string, there was a cold metal pendant, small, fitting between two fingers. He ran his thumb over the surface and felt the relief, the mantle, the veil, the delicate tilt of the head. He knew that shape. Church when he was 8. His mother beside him, lighting a candle, praying softly. Virgin Mary. Tom stopped breathing. How? How was this here? Between the stones? This isn't real, he whispered. But it was, solid in his hands, every detail sharp under his fingers, and the smell of roses still filled the air. Impossible, but undeniable. Tom didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't know if he was hallucinating or if something unexplainable was truly happening. But he was holding a rosary with the image of the Virgin Mary. Tom pulled the rosary to his chest, and for the first time he didn't know how many hours of absolute solitude and growing terror, the feeling of being completely alone, eased. As if someone had entered the tiny space with him, even though he couldn't see anyone. It made no sense at all. He should be screaming, pounding the walls, losing his mind with fear. But he was calm. Tom closed his eyes and prayed for real this time. Not memorized words he had long forgotten, but the only way he could. "I don't know if you're really here, but thank you. Thank you for not letting me go through this completely alone." He held the rosary and waited. Tom had been dozing off or blacking out. The line was far too thin at that point, when he felt the vibration, small at first, but growing. He opened his eyes in the dark, heart racing. No. The sound began, distant but unmistakable. Like underground thunder coming from every direction at once. No! Rock falling, somewhere, much too close. The ground shook, dust falling, small stones hitting. Tom curled against the wall, arms shielding his head, waiting for the ceiling to finally collapse, waiting for everything to end. The noise grew until it was deafening, the whole world caving in. And then it stopped. A sudden silence that was almost as terrifying as the noise had been. Tom breathed, fast, still alive. Still trapped, but alive. And then he realized something. Air, fresh air, coming from somewhere. He turned his head, trying to locate it. Hard to know in the dark, but there, on the other side of the tiny space, air entering through some new opening. Tom dragged himself forward, ignoring the pain in his leg, ignoring the dizziness. He felt along the opposite wall. There was a crack, a fissure, wide enough for his fingers to slip through, and air, fresh air. Clean air, flowing through it. He pressed his face to the opening and inhaled deeply, air that tasted like life. Oh, God, he whispered. Oh my God. Another collapse. But it hadn't come to take his life. It had come to give him air, to keep him alive. Tom looked back toward where he had left the rosary with the image of the Virgin Mary. He couldn't see it in the dark, but he knew exactly where it was. He didn't say anything, but he understood. 60 hours without water, maybe more. Tom had completely lost track of time. He felt his body failing in ways he didn't know were possible. His head so light it seemed like it might float away. His thoughts starting to detach, making no sense. He knew what was happening. He picked up the rosary with the image of the Virgin Mary that had stayed beside him ever since he found it, held it with both hands. If it's now, his voice barely came out, rough and weak. Take care of Maya for me. Make her know that Daddy tried, that Daddy didn't want to leave her alone. And thank you for being here with me. He rested his head against the cold wall. He thought about the things he had done in life and the ones he hadn't, about the marriage he destroyed by being too absent, always too tired, about the Sundays with Maya that had been good but never enough. Sorry, he said to all of them, to no one, to the universe, for everything I did wrong. And he felt something he did not expect to feel in that moment. It wasn't resignation or surrender. It was peace. Genuine peace, as if everything in some completely unexplainable way was right, as if he had arrived exactly where he needed to be. He closed his eyes, held Maya's photo in one hand, the rosary in the other, and waited. David Martinez had been coordinating mine rescues for 20 years. He had seen men saved at the last possible second. He had seen men found too late. He had learned a long time ago not to create expectations because it was easier that way, hurt less when things didn't work out. They had been drilling for 70 hours, calculating, recalculating. He knew the statistics, but they kept going because it was the job, because sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes, miracles happened. David! The man operating the drill stopped, raised his hand, asking for silence. What? Listen! David stepped closer and pressed his ear against the rock they had just broken through. Silence. And then, so faint he almost missed it, so distant it could have been imagination. A knock. Someone knocking from the other side. My God, he's alive. Keep drilling, quick! The last wall of rock broke open, and flashlight beams entered the space that had been complete darkness for 72 hours. David was the first to step inside, flashlight in hand, heart pounding fast despite all his years of experience. And he saw Tom Richardson sitting, leaning against the wall, completely covered in dust, cracked lips, sunken eyes, but awake, conscious, eyes blinking against the light he hadn't seen in days, holding something. Tom? David knelt down. Tom looked at him, slowly, as if returning from very far away. He nodded, tried to speak. Nothing came out. Don't try to talk. You're okay now. We found you. You're safe? A paramedic came in, checked him. 72 hours, he murmured to David while working. He should be unconscious at the very least, but he's stable. It doesn't make sense. David looked at what Tom was holding and hadn't let go of even when they entered. What's that? Tom opened his hand slowly, as if afraid it would disappear if he released it. The flashlight illuminated it. A rosary with the image of the Virgin Mary. A small pendant, maybe 5 centimeters long. David picked it up gently. Where did you find this? Tom pointed to the corner of the tiny pocket of space with a trembling hand. His voice came out as a hoarse whisper, barely audible. There, between the stones. David looked toward where Tom was pointing, then at the rosary, then at the man who had survived 72 hours. He thought about asking more, how that had ended up there, why it was there, what it meant. But he didn't ask. Because David had seen things he couldn't explain at the hospital 2 days later. Tom woke up, tubes connected, machines softly beeping around him, sunlight coming through the window. He had forgotten what it was like. He turned his head slowly, his whole body hurting in different ways now. The rosary was on the little table next to the bed. Someone had put it there. He reached out his hand, touched it gently, half expecting it to disappear, hoping it had been a hallucination after all. But it was real. "Hi, Dad." Tom turned his head to the other side. Maya stood at the door, eyes red from crying so much over the last few days. Tom opened his arms. "Come here, princess." She ran, jumped onto the bed, hugged him tight. "I thought you had gone away." "I thought that too," Tom admitted, his voice still hoarse but working. "I was scared too. But I'm here now. I'm here." Maya pulled back a little and looked at the rosary on the table. "Who is she?" Tom picked up the rosary with the pendant and showed it to his daughter. "The Virgin Mary. She took care of Daddy when he was in the dark." Maya touched the image gently. "She's pretty." "She is," Tom agreed. "Very pretty." 3 months later. Tom didn't go back to the mine. He got a job in a construction office, dealing with planning and safety. He earned less than he did as a miner, but he saw the sun every day, came home at 5 in the afternoon, had weekends free. Enough time to pick Maya up from school every day, enough time to spend Sundays with her, enough time to be truly present in her life for the first time. One Sunday afternoon they went to the park. Tom sat on the wooden bench watching, Maya on the swing going higher and higher, laughing. "Higher, Dad!" Tom stood up, walked to her, pushed the swing. And Tom remembered for a second. 50 meters underground, absolute darkness, no water, air running out, body shutting down. Accepting he was about to lose his life. Now he was here, warm sun on his face, his daughter laughing, alive. "Thank you," he whispered. Because sometimes in the darkest places that exist, that's where we truly learn that we were never really alone. Before finishing, I want to invite you to become part of our prayer community for the Virgin Mary, a place of faith and hope where people from all over the world come together to pray and share the graces they have received. If you feel in your heart the desire to be part of this chain of prayer, click below and become a member of the channel today and come pray with us. And look, if you made it this far, to the very end of Tom Richardson's story, do one thing for me. Write in the comments, "In the dark," the words that describe where a miracle happened when everything seemed lost. I want to see how many hearts this story truly reached. And every time I read "in the dark" in the comments, I will know that one more person believes that miracles from the Virgin Mary still happen. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to renew their hope today. May the Virgin Mary continue blessing and protecting you and your family. Amen.